You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
It's August the 3rd, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, your cannabis and psychedelic news source found here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good morning, Glenn. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Al. Just great. It's sunny outside and getting warmer. It was 10 degrees
Yeah, we were
last night,
talking
man. It
before
was
the
cold.
broadcast. It got cold, eh?
Yeah. I'm not used to 10 degrees. I like Costa Rican weather. 30 degrees in the morning when you get up.
Yeah. Well, the thing too is that it's not just something you've had recently, because you were down in Costa Rica all winter long, so you're quite used to that 30-degree plus weather.
Yeah, I'm absolutely freezing in. Like when I walk out in the morning, it's cold here.
It's cold, eh?
It's not supposed to be this cold though in August. You know what I mean? This is supposed to be our hot time, right? So,
yeah, like we had some single-digit temperatures recently, and it sounds like they just made it down to you.
Yeah. Thanks for sending that to us.
No problem.
I
No
appreciate
problem.
that.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Just so you know, I went to Peterborough the other day for a medical appointment, and on the way there, I saw a nice section of trees in around a swamp that were all changing color.
Oh, great. In August.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you could see the red coming out. So.
I love the colors. I hate that winter comes after them.
Yeah. And usually those the red, the maples. Some of the maples seem to go early. They go first week of August, and that's what's going on from what I saw. So
it's just kind of, I don't know, depressing in August to see those fall colors, right? So
yeah, and those single digit temperatures.
Yeah, that's worse than the colors for sure.
That's right, for sure. All right, well, talking about news and things that are worse and so on and so forth, let's get on to what we got in store for today. First up, our story comes to us from StratCan, and the headline on it says, Conservative Party policy proposal calls to abolish medical cannabis tax.
Sounds good on the surface. The head of a regional conservative electoral district association in New Brunswick has put forward a policy proposal to abolish excise tax on medical cannabis. The proposal will be considered for inclusion in the party platform as the Conservatives prepare for their national convention from September 7th to 9th in Quebec City. And they are the standing government here, so it could make a difference. We don't know.
The submission calls on the Conservative Party of Canada to adopt a policy that would abolish the excise tax on medical cannabis, fostering compassionate patient care and promoting its potential as made in Canada safe alternative to addictive opioids. It argues that ending this tax would encourage economic growth, support healthcare affordability, and could lessen opioid use. Now, I have one comment on this, Glenn. If they want to increase economic growth and support healthcare affordability, why stop at the excise tax? Why not eliminate all taxes on medicinal cannabis for patients?
Yeah, I fully agree with you there. I'm a person that says the tax code needs to be revised, regardless of it being cannabis or not. But definitely on cannabis for medical use, definitely.
Yeah.
Canadians are seeking relief through medical cannabis face undue financial burdens due to the current excise tax, reads the proposal. The policy removes such inequities, emphasizing compassionate care. Moreover, amid an opioid crisis, medical cannabis may serve as a safer, homegrown alternative to highly addictive opioids. Simultaneously, it bolsters our local cannabis industry, spurring economic growth. Removing this tax also aligns with principles of fiscal conservatism, eliminating eliminating a regressive levy that disproportionately impacts those with chronic health conditions. This policy aligns with compassionate care, potential reduction of opioid dependence, and economic growth, demonstrating a balanced approach to health and industry. Max Monahan Ellison, board chair with Medical Cannabis Canada, a national non-profit medical cannabis advocacy group, says MCC is broadly supportive of the proposal and points out individual party members have previously supported similar messaging. And this is the Conservative Party, so it's pretty promising for them to be saying this.
Yeah. Okay, I'm all for eliminating the excise tax.
Just go
Why
further.
stop there?
Yeah,
They're saying a lot of good stuff there, but why stop there? Why not?
Yeah, I'm just amazed that this is coming from the Conservative Party.
Well, they're about tax cuts, right?
Yeah, but they're not about medical cannabis usually.
No, they're not.
So the tax cut, but to this product, I'm very surprised that they're putting this forward.
Yeah. Let's see, where were we? Okay. His main concern is that such effects are done in a way that benefits medical cannabis users, not just the companies that they purchase from. Exactly. I gotta completely agree with them on that there. He says Medicinal Cannabis Canada is very supportive of any progress on medical cannabis taxation. The big thing is making sure that it's done in a way to ensure that the savings are passed down to patients.
Yeah,
exactly. That comes to us from Monahan Ellis.
That's a really hard thing to ensure, and I hope they can do it. How's this going to be done in a way that is most effective for the patient? Blair Gibbs, a policy consultant based in Vancouver and a former advisor for UK Prime Minister and a member of the Stanford Network for Addiction Policy, wrote an opinion piece earlier this year suggesting that Poilievre's Conservatives could better take advantage of gaps in federal cannabis policy, including taxes on medical cannabis. Cutting taxes in the right way is always something Conservatives should do, and this proposal is long overdue, Gibbs tells StratCan. It was bad policy to apply the excise tax to medical products, undermining the dysfunction between two separate regulated products. It's absolutely true what he's saying there.
It's true, and it's bad policy to put any tax on medical cannabis products.
Yeah, as soon as it's a medical product, there should be no taxes on it at all.
At all, yeah. Now, Pierre Poilievre's National Party needs a balancing platform on cannabis that accepts the reality of a well-established, safe, legal recreational market. But they must also fix some of the flaws of the Trudeau regime, changing the tax on cannabis to focus on potency and investing more in road policing and border enforcement against traffickers in illegal cannabis would be other steps the Conservatives should pledge to take if elected.
See, now they've gone off the other side of it and completely lost me.
Well, let's get into the history of cannabis and Conservatives, which is in the next section.
Although some Conservatives have made similar calls for the end of taxes on cannabis for medical purposes in the past, the platform proposal does stand in contrast to other Conservative Party messaging on cannabis, both medical and non-medical. The party's former shadow Minister of Health, Marilyn Gladu, who has a history of interesting comments on the subject, told the Globe and Mail in 2019 that the party would seek to ban homegrowns as well as personal and designated medical grow licenses while supporting larger companies over smaller craft and micro growers. She had also said the party was looking at paring back allowances for cannabis edibles and beverages. Complete 180 on the policy. But then they keep coming back to the same thing. Cops in the end,
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Conservatives believe that prescription medication should not be taxed. All right. Take it all off.
Yeah.
For this consistency, this means the prescriptions of cannabis should not be taxed. Yeah. Eliminate it all. In addition, the Conservative MPs have been calling for an end to medical cannabis personal and designated grow licenses, aligning their messages with law enforcement who refer to allowances as loopholes for criminal activities. So you read it, and we both read it, that they are calling for the end of growing rights.
Yes, and
Okay, they did that in 2013. This quote from Gladu was from 2019, 6 years after they got the wrist slap from the court saying that they couldn't do that, and now they're just, and what's the chances that they could do this again, and not only for patients but the people to grow their own 4 plants.
you know what's funny? It started out being a feel good story about removing taxes on a medical product, and it winds up being a story about uh, cops being called on you because you got a fucking pot plant in your backyard.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
understand how they can turn that around that fast. You know,
No, well, they do.
I was all positive at the beginning.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Didn't end that way though, unfortunately.
And it never does. They
All right, on to our
give you a
next
little bit
story.
and then take a lot.
MJ Biz Daily says that Canadian producer MediPharm exports cannabis oil to the U.S. for clinical trial.
Canadian cannabis producer MediPharm Labs said it completed a shipment of cannabis oil containing both CBD and THC to the United States for use in a clinical trial. While shipping cannabis to the United States for scientific use isn't unusual, MediPharm said in a news release that this marks the first time a cannabis product has been sourced from a Canadian licensed producer for a phase 2 clinical trial in the U.S.
The release said the trial is being funded by the U.S. National Institutes of Health in Maryland, but did not reveal who was conducting the trial. The delivery occurred back on July the 28th, and in a news release, MediPharm said the export process relied on
its drug establishment license and product stability data, the United States Innovative New Drug Approval, U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration import approval. And MediPharm said steps to meet those requirements were years in the making and involved significant capital investments.
This development is significant as the majority of Canadian operators in the U.S. are operating under state-specific regulations that prohibits them from manufacturing for FDA-sanctioned research activities and DEA-approved shipments under federal narcotics law. MediPharm, which is aiming to be the leader of development and production of pharmaceutical cannabinoids, said it has completed a 5-day in-person inspection by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration last November, the first of its kind for a cannabis facility in Canada. There you go.
Yeah. Well, it's
They're
I guess
sending
that's
oil south of the border for testing.
It's funny that it's illegal for them. They have their own system to grow this and make this product, but they can't ship it anywhere else for a study. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
They're always talking about buy American, but it doesn't work that way.
No, exactly. All right, on to the next story. This comes to us from Yahoo News. And the headline on it says 2 tribal nations to open Minnesota's first legal recreational marijuana dispensaries.
White Earth, Minnesota. At least 2 tribal nations are expected to open Minnesota's first recreational cannabis dispensaries in August as recreational cannabis becomes legal to possess and grow in the state on Tuesday. Following a council vote on Friday, the White Earth Nation in northwestern Minnesota legalized recreational cannabis and will begin selling it sometime in the first half of August, Minnesota Republic Radio reported. Both tribal members and non-tribal adults 21 years and older would be able to purchase from the nation's dispensary.
Weeks earlier, Native Care, a tribal-run medical marijuana provider, announced a recreational cannabis dispensary expected to open shortly on Red Lake Nation once the new law takes effect. The nation is also in northwestern Minnesota. The band could have started selling recreational cannabis at that time, but decided to wait until Minnesota's new cannabis law legalizes possession nationwide.
Our intention is to be a good partner and ultimately fill the void for people who intend to use cannabis, Red Lake Tribal Secretary Sam Strong told the Star Tribune. The state's Democratic-controlled legislature approved a massive cannabis legalization bill this year, which Democratic Governor Tim Walz signed in May.
White Earth Nation and Red Lake Nation plan to take advantage of the sovereignty and allow sales right away. But the state projects most legal retail sales won't begin until early of 2025, while it creates a licensing and regulatory system for the new industry. Minnesota is the 23rd state to legalize recreational cannabis, more than a decade after Colorado and Washington did.
Why is it going to take them a year and a half to get the first retail sales open? A year and a half.
I know, eh?
They knew this was coming, and
Yeah,
it's
I don't
still a
know.
year
I
and a half.
don't know. Well, it's like when they when we legalized it here, it didn't come right off right away because there has to be a system put in place. And maybe they don't have a system put in place. They had to wait till it was legal before they could do it. I don't know. Yeah.
But they knew this law was going to be
It's it's not like yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
strange.
Thailand, where they just said, "Oh, it's legal," and they gave away 1 million seeds. Unfortunately, we didn't get something like that. So, all right, on to our next story. Windsor police seize drugs in a second raid on Psilocybin dispensary, and this comes to us from Windsor Right.
Windsor police have charged one person and seized a large quantity of drugs after executing a search warrant at a downtown dispensary that sells psilocybin, commonly known as magic mushrooms. Police say that just after 12:30 p.m. on Tuesday, members of the Drug and Guns Unit executed a search warrant at the dispensary in the 300 block of Hewlett Avenue. As a result, officers seized a total street value of over $36,000 in illicit drugs. The following drugs and property were seized as part of the investigation.
1,191 grams of dried psilocybin, 21 milligrams of vape cartridges, 1 bottle of liquid psilocybin, 178 chocolate bars, 152 bottles of capsules, 97 packages of gummies, 11 packages of 100 milligrams of tea bags, $270 in cash, 2 televisions, a computer monitor, and DVR system for surveillance cameras, iPad, and window advertisement signage.
A 22-year-old employee is charged with possession of a scheduled substance for the purpose of trafficking. He is expected to attend court at a later date. The owner of the business is currently wanted on a warrant of arrest from a previous search warrant at this location. In July 2023, the Diggs unit launched an initial investigation after hearing complaints and concerns from community members about the store selling products that contain the hallucinogenic compound psilocybin, which is illegal under the Controlled Drugs and Substances. One person was charged and drugs and property were seized as part of this initial investigation.
There you go. Yeah. So what does that lead us to? What's that?
It seems to be a common thing.
Yes, it is. It is. And that's probably what leads us to our next story from CTV News. And the headline there, it says that, come on, bring it up. There we go. What's behind a string of police raids at the Ontario Magic Mushroom dispensaries? They asked me that question.
Yeah, we're going to answer it right now. Several communities in southwestern Ontario have seen illegal magic mushroom stores opening and challenging the current status quo on the fungus. But one expert says that doesn't necessarily mean magic mushrooms are on the path to legalization. In the last month, dispensaries in Windsor, London, and Bradford have been raided by police.
Andrew Hathaway has been studying drug policy in Canada for decades. A professor of psychology at the University of Guelph, Hathaway said he can only speculate why the raids are happening, saying it could simply be the case that the businesses are not being discreet enough in their activities.
And those kinds of things are typically what would lead to the police to kind of send a strong reminder, we're going to shut you down, he said. Hathaway believes focusing police attention on magic mushrooms doesn't make much sense. When we're talking about a crisis involving the use of poisons in the street like fentanyl and drugs being laced with things that are even worse, I mean, psilocybin, it doesn't even make a lot of sense from a policy perspective to make it a priority, Hathaway said.
His comments come around a week after Brantford police said a dispensary on Colburn Street near Clement Street was raided and over 2 pounds of psilocybin products were seized. Kingdom Fungus had been in operation for nearly 2 months and was raided on July the 14th, with police recovering an estimated $10,755 in psilocybin mushrooms and edibles.
And at the time, Brantford police said it wanted to remind the public psilocybin remains a restricted substance under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, where it is classified as a Schedule III drug, making it illegal to sell and possess. Earlier this month, Windsor police raided a magic mushroom dispensary nearly a week after it popped up downtown. 1 week.
Yeah, in this instance, Magic Mushroom location was operated by Fun Guys, a brand that has popped up in cities across Ontario and Quebec. Co-owner Edgar's Goran told CTV News that its other 10 locations are constantly raided by police.
And meanwhile, Hathaway said despite growing awareness and acceptance of psilocybin, he does not believe it is on the same path to legalization as cannabis. To my knowledge, that comparison doesn't work as well when we're talking about mushrooms. There have been discussions about policy reform, Hathaway said, and to my understanding, there has been no pronouncements to that effect on the part of the government formally.
And Waterloo Police confirmed to CTV News Kitchener that it is not aware of any magic mushroom shops operating in the region. So there you go.
And they don't even list the shop on the website. So.
Website, yeah. Yeah. All righty, Glenn. There's our first 5 stories. We ripped through them.
We did.
Yeah, well, it's time to hear from our sponsors and for us to take a break. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Canatechs about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Back to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, and we're ready to get started our second half, aren't we, Glenn?
We are. We got
What's
through
that?
the first one. We got through the first one so fast.
We sure did.
Might as well do the
Yeah,
second
didn't
one.
we? We just flew through them.
We did.
Yeah, that's right. Here we go. Marijuana moment is the news source, and the headline says Minnesota's first marijuana shop sees overwhelming sales on legalization's first day, having to turn away customers and close the online orders.
Wow.
Yeah.
The first and for now only recreational cannabis shop in Minnesota opened its doors on Tuesday, and the demand was intense, with the business so overwhelmed that it had to turn customers away at the store and also temporarily suspended online orders to keep up. The Red Lake Nation tribe was quick to take advantage of a unique feature of the state's legalization law, which went into effect on Tuesday, and launched its storefront in Red Lake well before traditional retailers are expected to start being licensed by state regulators. And as we just found out, they're not being licensed, or they won't be open to a year and a half, the other stores.
Yeah, as far as the rest of everybody else, correct.
So they're going to have a hell of a time at this store for a year and a half.
They sure are.
Yeah.
Some people traveled hours and lined up outside the native care shop amid scattered rainstorms to be the first to participate in the state's legal market. By the end of the day, the business said it served more than 300 customers and needed to turn people away around 3 p.m. local time so that they could be sure to serve everyone that has been patiently waiting.
On Wednesday, the shop announced that it was suspending online orders due to the overwhelming number of purchases that were being made and the need to make sure orders from the past 48 hours were fulfilled. For now, the Red Lake Nation is the only tribe that's lawfully selling cannabis in Minnesota, but the White Earth Nation tribe is expected to quickly follow, with its governing council voting to authorize cannabis sales last week.
Yeah, that's what I figured. There'd be more joining them. The one place won't be the only place.
Yeah.
While the possession and cultivation of cannabis for adults 21 and older is now legal as of Tuesday, state licensed retailers are expected to come online until 2024 at the earliest. Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura said last week that he wants to get in on the action too, and became the first major politician in America to have his face on a marijuana brand.
A marijuana moment is tracking more than 1,000 cannabis, psychedelics, and drug policy bills.
Yeah, it's the end of the story.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right. On to the next one. This one comes to us from McLean's. I haven't heard that name in a while, but when I saw this headline, I am dying of cancer. Black market psilocybin gave me a new lease on life. I thought I have to read more into this. What's going on?
Mushrooms work magic on my mental health after a terminal diagnosis. More Canadians should have access to them. In 2011, at the age of 54, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. It was traumatic at first. For a few months, radiation and intravenous chemotherapy took over my life. When my scan showed no more evidence of disease, I was only too willing to put the experience behind me. Sadly, things took a turn for the worse in 2018 when a routine mammogram revealed that the cancer had returned. Even after a mastectomy in 2021, I found out that the disease had spread into my right lung, left ribs, and my sternum. This time, my case was terminal. I was given 28% chance of surviving 5 years.
Up until then, I've lived a mostly fortunate and sometimes exciting life. In addition to a 30-year career as a translator for the provincial government in my hometown of Winnipeg, I worked on archaeology projects in northern Manitoba, traveled across Canada with the youth program Kinavik, spent a summer in Nicaragua during the Sandinista Revolution, and lived in Nairobi for 6 months while helping to organize the first National Women's Conference for the All Africa Conference of Churches. I loved cross-country skiing, cycling, and paddling, and was an amateur photographer and an avid knitter. I had a wide circle of friends and nieces and nephews I adored. The emotions I experienced in the wake of my diagnosis were I never felt. I dealt with mild depression in my adult life. This was different. Every time I saw a friend, I wondered if it was my final goodbye. I feared every experience I would be my last. My mind like a gerbil on a wheel, repeating the same phrase over and over again. I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying.
One night, while searching for a distraction, I stumbled onto a Netflix documentary called Fantastic Fungi that caused me to sit bolt upright. It explained that mushrooms contain psilocybin, a psychoactive ingredient, have been shown in clinical trials to reduce end-of-life distress in cancer patients. I'd always avoided psychedelic drugs in the past for fear of losing control. After my diagnosis, however, I was desperate to get out of my head. I started scouring the internet for information about psilocybin, how to ingest it in capsule or mushroom form, how long its mind-altering effect lasts, usually 6 hours, and how safe it is, provided users start with a good mindset and are in a safe environment. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration considers psilocybin a breakthrough therapy for severe depression, and it also shows promise as a treatment for a host of other conditions, including anxiety, cluster headaches, PTSD, and addiction. In other cases, a single dose can boost a user's sense of well-being for months or even years afterwards. I also learned that it was relatively easy to find and buy unregulated mushrooms from underground dealers at online stores and even at a brick and mortar stores in some Canadian cities. Still, I was concerned enough about safety that I did not want to journey unaccompanied. During my online research, I came across TheraPsil, a Canadian nonprofit organization that could connect me to a trained professional for psilocybin-assisted therapy, but only if I obtained approval to access the use the drugs from Health Canada. Late in 2021, I applied for a Section 56 exemption, a special provision that allows the Minister of Health to grant exemptions to the application of Canada's Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. A handful of Canadians had accessed psilocybin that way since 2020. I was confident I was a good candidate too.
Much to my dismay, I received a notice of rejection in February 2022. I'm not surprised. According to Health Canada, I had not exhausted its preferred options. Clinical trials, none were available to Manitoba-based patients. In the Special Access Program, or SAP. The SAP entitles licensed healthcare professionals to treat patients with controlled drugs and substances within the province of practice on a case-by-case basis. Psilocybin had only been added to the SAP's list of eligible substances the week before Health Canada received my application, and none of my 3 doctors knew enough about psilocybin to feel comfortable supporting my application. I was so upset about the rejection that I reached out to the media to share my experience. The coverage caught the attention of Health Canada's chief medical advisor, who contacted me soon after. She tried to explain that their caution was in the interest of my safety. Incredulously, I said, I'm dying. What do you think you're saving me from? Exactly. She told me to send Health Canada a letter from one of my doctors confirming that I'd exhausted the SAP option, which I did in April of 2022. I reapplied for a Section 56 exception, was told to expect a response within 70 days.
Meanwhile, a local therapist has seen my story on the news and offered me 2 psilocybin-assisted therapy sessions at a cost of $2,500. We started orientation, and I told her I wanted to give Health Canada a chance to respond before I moved on to the next phase. Not long after that, 3 people in my circle passed away in the space of 2 weeks, which re-triggered my anxiety about death. I contacted the therapist and told her I was ready. That June, I found myself in her kitchen, watching her weigh, grind, and brew 2.8 grams of mushrooms to make a tea. This was so-called middle dose, intended to see how the mushroom and I took to each other. The therapist and I climbed the stairs to a second-story room furnished with a bed, a chair, and a sound system playing calming tones and nature sounds. I donned an eye mask, lay down on the bed, and started my journey. I briefly experienced feelings of nausea and dread, but ultimately the experience was sublime and left me feeling a profound sense of connection to the family members, living and dead. Later that summer, I took a 5-gram dose, which proved a little more challenging. I underwent an ego dissolution process, which felt like a kind of death. Once again, the bliss I felt afterwards made the darkness more than worthwhile. I couldn't feel my body at all. I was euphoric. I kept saying, I want to live here.
I was only in that altered state for 6 hours each time, but the impact of those sessions has been life-changing. They helped me to understand the childhood traumas that made me who I am, and to finally move past them. I like and accept myself more than I used to, and I'm able to laugh at my phobias and fallings like never before. Most importantly, psilocybin erased my fear of death. I am convinced that when I die, I will return to a state of consciousness not unlike the one I experienced during my second trip. When my time comes, I will embrace it. But for now, I'm living more fully than ever. Last November, I traveled to Ottawa with Tharrisville to lobby politicians to provide safe access to psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy and medical psilocybin through a regulatory framework. I returned in February of this year to help Tharrisville publicize a recommendation made by the Joint Committee on Medical Assistance in Dying to consider psilocybin as part of palliative care, along with MAID. And 3 months later, in May, Health Canada informed me of its intent to reject my second Section 56 request, a full year after I'd applied. Having gone on the record about my illegal psilocybin use, I wasn't actually expecting a response at all, she says. I've also joined 7 other plaintiffs in challenging Canada's prohibition of psilocybin on charter rights. So you can see why people are going to the illegal market when they get turned down, when they're told to go to a program and that program refuses to help them.
This lady is dying. She has a confirmed diagnosis, and they're still turning her down. I don't understand why the program's even there if this lady cannot get it.
Yeah.
You might as well just throw it out with the garbage because that's what it seems to be. I'm still confused as to why government would sooner expedite a life, ending treatment with MAID rather than a stress-reducing treatment that could improve palliative patients' quality of life. Is it the threat of political backlash, pressure from the pharmaceutical industry? I can only speculate. I had no qualms about breaking the law in an effort to preserve my mental health, or perhaps even my life, but I understand that many people might not want to. I may not live long enough to see the decriminalization of this marvelous medicine, but to me, fighting for legal access is a worthwhile way to spend part of the time I have left.
Yeah, there you go. Patients fighting again. In order to get access to the medicine. We did it with cannabis. We're doing it here. This lady here, and then you also got the recent story with Alice and Meriden. Same thing. She's getting turned down.
Yeah, we've read a couple.
People got to go to the press, and she went to the press. She got reaction from Health Canada. Oh, reapply, and then they still reject her.
I don't. They're saying they're projecting her. They're rejecting her to protect her, and she says in the story, "Protect her from what? She's already dying.
From what?
You can't protect her anymore."
Yeah.
Makes no sense. All we can do is report it and tell people about it.
That's right. Next story here comes from City News. Former Canopy Growth CEO on provincial markdowns as cannabis companies struggle to profit.
Since it became legal in 2018, the cannabis sector in Canada has faced financial struggles, and many who invested in cannabis companies are seeing financial losses. Um, Still, the Crown agency that monopolizes the legal distribution of cannabis across the province, which is the Ontario Cannabis Store, is lowering prices starting in September. This means the organization will be lowering its profit margin after reducing most markups on cannabis products sold to retailers.
What is not known is whether this change will lower consumer costs or boost the bottom line of the cannabis companies. Bruce Linton, and former Canopy Growth Chief Executive Officer, told City News Ottawa that part of the industry's challenges are related to taxation, including a markup by OCS and tax by the federal government. About a half of every dollar of revenue goes to the federal government, making it a big challenge for companies that are investing to make money, according to Linton.
And while we're seeing more and more cannabis companies disappear, Litton explained this can be attributed to an abundance of licensed cannabis producers who create an excess supply. However, he also predicts that the value of the companies that do survive will increase in the next year or so due to fewer market competitors. According to Litton, Ontario lowering markups on cannabis is intended to help in the short term, where products that may currently have 35% markups are brought down to 25% to assist in combating the illicit cannabis market.
What we're trying to do is get rid of the illicit market, which has nobody regulating how they can make the product, and it can end up in concentrating forms with impurities, which humans shouldn't be consuming when it comes to the legal market. The former cannabis CEO went on to explain that there is also a new kind of cannabis store opening across the country that operates under independent Indigenous rights and contributes to the illicit market.
I say they do not contribute to the illicit market because they
Yeah.
are not illicit market. It is their land. They can do with whatever they want there. That cannabis is like magic cannabis, he added. It's not produced in the lawful system. Therefore, it's contributing to the unlawful or illegal production, which is not licensed and not taxed. They don't have to tax you because you don't have the right to take taxes from them. So this is just a moot point by someone who has a vested interest in the system. Another challenge that this sector faces is that while you can purchase alcohol from a liquor store or head out to a bar, in the case of cannabis, there is only one option. Go to a store with a provincial supply and take it home. True.
There is no licensed environment in which you can consume any form of cannabis that needs to be involved. That needs to be evolved if they're going to take over the illicit market. But he pointed out the biggest issue the cannabis market is facing is a federal tax, charging $1 in tax per gram. When the federal government said they're going to make recreational cannabis available, they wanted three things to happen, he says. They wanted to squeeze out the illicit market, educate children, and have a platform where they would see how this can become more science-driven.
Lowering wholesale markups means that the price of a gram will go down, but the tax will remain at $1. Litton calls on the federal government to dial back their 10% obligation to allow businesses to prosper and see growth. Instead of staying at 10%, they said, we'll just charge $1, said Linton, but the price of a gram is going from $10 to $5, $4, or $3, and the tax is still $1.
That's right. Yeah, it is. All righty. On to our next story. MJ Biz Daily. And this one, the headline on it, I was a bit surprised when I first read it, so I had to look into it further. It says, Canada faces potential class action suit, ex-cannabis legalization chair says.
Canada's federal government could face legal consequences for failing to facilitate research on potential health issues experienced by cannabis smokers, according to the former chair of the task force that laid the groundwork for recreational legalization in the country. Anne McClellan, a former law professor at the University of Alberta, told the Globe and Mail newspaper the Canadian government could potentially face a class action lawsuit.
Federal health minister from 2002 to 2003, McClellan told the Toronto-based newspaper that any lawsuits could still be at least a decade down the road, meaning there's still time to conduct research. The Globe and Mail noted that Health Canada's most recent report on cannabis emissions was published in 2013.
Canada legalized adult use cannabis sales and consumption in 2018. McClellan said she wanted the government to incentivize the private sector to conduct tests on the chemicals released when cannabis flower is ignited, in addition to research on the impact any related chemicals might have on consumers' health.
The big disappointment coming out of the legalization project is that the governments and researchers have not stepped up in the way that we had hoped after legalization to do that research. This is a lot. There is a lot that we do not know that we are going to need to know. So it sounds like when you read that spot there, she wanted the government to incentivize the private sector to conduct tests on the chemical release from the cannabis flower.
Or how about even taking some of this tax dollars that they're collecting here and doing it themselves?
That would be nice.
You know,
They could do that.
We're paying a fortune. We just
isn't
learned
that what part of the tax is for?
Yeah,
isn't that what
that's
part
what
of
you
it's
think.
for?
That's what you think.
You would think so. All right.
Yeah.
Well, on to our last story of the day. Yeah, look at that last story. We're on 11:45. We're 45 minutes into it. All right. Headline says small marijuana businesses take advantage of purported 280E loophole. And this comes to us from MJ Biz Daily.
A growing number of cannabis businesses are taking advantage of a tax strategy that might reduce the costly financial burden imposed by Section 280E of the Federal Tax Code. Small businesses with a gross income of less than $27 million are able to deduct expenses to a near legal degree, according to accountants specializing in cannabis. Near legal.
Near legal. By one estimate, cannabis companies paid nearly $2 billion more in federal taxes than mainstream businesses. But not all certified public accountants are on board with using the relatively new tax strategy, and they warn cannabis entrepreneurs that using it could be risky.
Section 280E currently prevents plant-touching companies from deducting many traditional business expenses because cannabis remains a Schedule 1 substance and illegal under federal law. In recent years, a growing number of accountants and professionals specializing in cannabis discovered a small business provision within the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Yeah, the provision called Section 471C was designed to simplify accounting for inventory and cost of goods sold for cannabis for businesses with less than $25 million in gross income. For example, if a business wants to include 100% of its facility's cost in its inventory calculation, it could do that if it is based on the company's books and records, according to Jim Boltler, who is the founder and CEO of the Oregon-based accounting firm Psychedelics CPA.
In other words, a cannabis retailer could include expenses associated with renting a storage facility for inventory in its cost of goods sold. For some businesses, the tax savings from including such expenses under inventory costs can be significant.
We can get taxes down to near legal levels, he says. Now, Section 280E has been one of the toughest barriers to success for the U.S. cannabis businesses. Tax liabilities are so high for some multi-state operators, they're deferring payments while weighing the impact of penalties against the higher cost of raising capital.
And Chicago-based Verano Holdings, for example, will carry a balance of roughly $250 million in taxes owed after paying about $100 million. While Section 471C is helpful only to smaller companies, it has become the single most important development for the cannabis industry, said Nick Richards, who's the market-based partner and co-chair of Cannabis Law Practice Group in Greenspoon Martyr. Richards explained the legal background of 471C in a letter to the editor in a recent edition of Tax Notes, a tax-focused publication.
According to Richards, costs disallowed under Section 280E do not disappear. They just cannot be deducted under the old accounting methods. But under Section 471C, the limitations of the old accounting methods no longer apply, and some of the costs can be recognized as COGS.
This creates the possibility of recapturing costs that were previously disallowed under 280E before the use of the 471C method. But while a growing number of CPAs are using it, there are still a number of accountants who won't use 471C, arguing that 280E disallows any kind of deduction that could invite audits.
The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed in 2017, and under Section 471, companies with gross income of 25 million or less can choose if and how they track and report inventory. That includes capitalizing overhead, according to Buller, meaning a business could include payroll and facility-related costs in its inventory calculation, and therefore deduct some of them from gross receipts.
Some accountants declared that 280E was dead for small cannabis businesses, and the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration took notice. In January 2021, the IRS passed another regulation stating that anyone subject to 280E, namely cannabis businesses, can't use 471C to reduce the impact of 280E.
But some believe the IRS overstepped, according to Butler. Fortunately for businesses subject to 280E, the IRS does not write the tax code. Congress does. To Richards, 471C can still be used for small cannabis businesses because it allows taxpayers to add ordinary and necessary business expenses, such as payroll, to the COGS.
Richards says he has seen clients use 481C also get audited by the IRS, but in each case, the tax agency issued no charge letters, meaning there were no penalties issued or corrections made. That said, Houdelier warned that accountants must make correct inventory elections, including the proper disclosures, and should never attempt to write off all overhead expenses to avoid a 280E entirely. It sounds like this is completely legal if they've already audited a few people and they come up with no charge.
He says that we do not recommend kicking the hornet's nest. Accuracy is key to disputing a tax position with the IRS, he says. So maintaining good books and records that reflect the company's use of the 471C inventory methodology is essential. Butler also advised that accountants in the marijuana space ensure there's a narrative for justifying the use of 471C, and that narrative cannot be because you're trying to get out of 280E.
Instead, the reason we use 471C is to simplify our inventory reporting process to avoid the complicated allocation methods we used to use prior to 481 or 471C, he said. Boudelaire said it's up to accountants to decide how aggressive or conservative they want to be. One thing's for sure, doing nothing to mitigate 280E is a mistake and very costly.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that down the road that the people who are using the 471C don't all of a sudden get slapped and get audited, and next thing you know, being
it sounds to me like it would be Congress that would have to change the tax code because they've already been audited, a few of them, and they came through.
True, yeah, true.
So if you're audited and you're claiming that, and they're saying you did a good tax report, then you're clear. You're clear. And so should everybody else who uses it.
Yeah, you would think so. See what happens. Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, Glenn. We're done. We got a few minutes, but other than that, you got anything you want to say before we wrap things up?
No, we had some really good stories today. Some of them made me mad, and some of them made me happy, which is usually the case.
Yeah, I think that happens. I think that happens at every broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and I learned things.
Yeah, well, that's why it's in our name, educational news, right?
Yeah.
To learn things.
Every time.
Yeah. Every time. From the Legacy420.com news desk, that's the news for today. We hope you found it educational and informative. Thank you to Legacy420.com, Camelford Lifestyle Shop, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca for helping out and being those supporters. And to our viewers, catch our next broadcast, which will be Monday with myself. And, Monday's a holiday.
Oh,
that's right.
Monday.
Long weekend, so there won't be a show. That's right. So the next broadcast will be next Thursday. As far as news broadcast, you and me back here, same spot, same chairs. We'll see everybody then. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.